Bedros, what's up, brother? I'm super honored to have you on the show. Been following a long time. I know that you've gotten to work as a mentor and coach to some of my friends like Nick Kumalatsos and his businesses. And I've seen you work with Dan Fleischman and continuing to put stuff out. And instead of diving into your history and all these other things that I can find in Wikipedia, like, what's the work you're doing right now that you're the most excited about?
Yeah, man. First off, thanks for the opportunity to be on your show. Always an honor. Love what you do. Love how you show up, and love remember the shorts you gave me
Yeah,
probably
man.
about a year ago?
Yeah.
Still wear them proudly, practically every night when I go to my gym and work out. So I appreciate
Well,
those.
look, I'll send you a new loadout.
You're awesome, man. But the work I've been doing lately has been work that is specifically with my podcast. I've been blessed to have great leaders across all my companies. So Fit Body Bootcamp, my franchise, has a great CEO now. Truline, my supplement company, has a great leader, a VP. Same with my coaching business. So that kind of leaves me where I can just do what I've been recently focused on, which is the last 2 years, focused on helping wake men up. Not so much in terms of the manosphere or any of that stuff and high value man, not that stuff, but like, what is our role and responsibility as a man, as terms of fathers, in terms of husbands, in terms of leaders, in terms of citizens of this country, and how do we stop the opposition from taking over and eroding the fiber of what men are? And so that's been my highest priority in recent years for all the obvious reasons. I don't need to tell you, you know this, but it's been a passion of mine.
Man, I love that. And man, that area has been such an interesting one, right? Because yeah, I know you do too, right? Like, it's full accountability for this life. I am radically accountable to all of it. And so that kind of keeps me from ever being able to point the finger at something else.
Yeah.
And I do see this erosion away of those things. But I also think that it's because we've continued to hand it over.
You're exactly right. It is an absolute, the highest form of being complicit in the erosion of our rights, liberties, freedoms, and masculinity. And it's one of those things where it's a death by 1,000 cuts, Matt. In other words, you know, look, the opposition, big government, pharmaceutical companies, the food corporations that are more focused on making you eat processed foods to get you sick. So on the other side of it, they can create the antidote in terms of either a vaccine or whatever. They're not going to just come and say, look, give us all your rights and freedoms, because it doesn't work that way. They're going to slowly encroach on your rights and freedoms, and just when you go, hey, that's enough, you've come too far, they stop right there. They let you get comfortable, and then they slowly begin to encroach again. Little by little, you lose footing. And what's really happened is all of this is a byproduct of men, society, in fact, allowing the functions of modern technologies, comfort and complacency, to come in. I mean, you can now order your food on, Grubhub and Uber Eats and DoorDash and watch it come to you. You don't have to, I mean, never mind going out and hunting. You don't even have to go and buy your
Right.
food these days. You don't have to buy your groceries. Everything's gotten so easy, so convenient. We live in a life of convenience, complacency, comfort, and all of those things are the antithesis of what men are. Like, we need hardship, we need adversity, men need to be tested, we need to know, do I still have what it takes? And sadly, the answer today for most men is no, they don't. But yeah, you're right, they've been absolutely complicit in giving away what is our core masculine functions.
Yeah, those, the moves with pharma and the moves with the nutrition and big government. And man, I look at that from a perspective of, we've fallen into this because the only thing we really worship in this country is maximizing profit.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
food companies and everything are going to do the same. And as long as we're willing to be the consumer of worse products, we continue to cast our vote and tell them this is what we would prefer.
Yeah.
Because
You're
if we
absolutely
all
right.
changed and said, we only eat grass-fed food, we only do this, they'd follow suit and make sure that's what they're selling us.
That's exactly right. I mean, look, every business, my businesses included, I listen to what my customers want and then I provide it. And
Mhm.
typically what all humans want, it doesn't matter the industry, it doesn't matter the product line or the service line. We all want convenience. We all want it to be easier. We want it to be faster. And so when you look at the food corporation, well, the more they process and package up food, easier, convenient, affordable it becomes. But it's also so damaging to our bodies. But you're right. The moment we decide that, you know what, I'd rather put a little work in and cook grass fed beef, I'd rather have things that don't have hormones and GMO in it. But that requires effort.
Yeah.
And so this is why we have to actively push against comfort and seek out discomfort, adversity, even if that means having to actually spend a little few moments in the kitchen to cook something up instead of just opening up a package that's been processed and has a shelf life of 5 years.
Uh, I, I think that's absolutely brilliant, right? Like that leaning into discomfort. I look at that as, look at all the lessons that we learned from the gym. I don't get to compete anymore, but during that time, what I learned is if I want my body to adapt in any way, I have to stress it out.
Yeah.
And I look at how lucky we are with the abundance we've got, especially living in Western culture in America, that for the first time in human history, I get to choose the stress I want to adapt to. Now, because we leaned into comfort and the previous generation made it look like success is your feet up on the beach and doing nothing, we've now learned that just because we can do nothing, we'll get sick doing that.
Right. Oof.
And so
So
how do we get people to realize that you have to still choose work? You still have to choose discomfort to grow and adapt. Why would your body express itself as healthy as it can be, as immune as it could be, as best at problem solving, unless those things are tested to the point that it has to grow?
yeah. And you know what, dude? There was a time, right? You and I know this. Like there was a time during the caveman era where for the caveman to eat, he probably had to risk his life. Like if he's got his cave woman and his cave baby in the cave and he's got some boulder pushed in front of it to keep them safe so the saber-toothed tiger doesn't come. And this caveman and that caveman, they all have to come together with spears and nets and some kind of a archaic plan to be able to corner the saber-toothed tiger, hopefully kill it, in the process, not get killed or maimed so that they can eat this thing. And now they got to kill it, drag it, take it apart, share it. Now they're thirsty. They have to go out to the river. Again, fight off animals that are trying to eat them while they're trying to get to the river with a hollowed out piece of trunk to use as a bucket to bring water back. And then they need to have some shelter and some heat. So they find wood and they dry it out and they find rocks so life used to create adversity for us. We didn't have
Right.
to go out and find it. The problem with humans are we're so smart. We're so capable of solving problems that we've oversolved problems. Like, fuck, man, we don't even roll down our own car windows anymore. Like, I showed my son and daughter like old school car windows rolling down. They're
Yeah.
like, I don't understand what that device is. I'm like, it replaces this little button and you don't have to do anything. And so, in the absence of not having to do any of that, where cave people and hell, even people in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s had some level of they had to go and do things to make things happen. Today, it's become very easy to post something and make money, and that money comes into some cash app, and then that cash app gets used through another app to order food. And so, the answer that really we have to give to humanity is you have to become self aware enough to know that this level of comfort, complacency, and convenience is killing you. And I think we're going to see that in the next 5 to 10 years that the world has gotten so comfortable, so convenient, so complacent that people are dying, not only of anxiety, depression, but also of actual disease that's attacking their body because they're not moving anymore. I mean, at some point, they have to come to the realization, self awareness, and go, you know what? I think I've gone too far in this, and then the pendulum has to swing. At least I'm optimistically hoping it will.
Yeah, I hope so too, man. I hope that we get our shit together. If we're going to survive it, we will, right? Like, I don't believe that this is going to will eliminate the human species.
No, it's certainly
Like,
not going to
we
eliminate.
figure it out, right? Because
Yeah.
what an interesting pendulum swing this has been in the last 20 years. It's not. Both you and I grew up very analog.
Mhm.
So, we don't even have full lifetimes of people dealing with this level of tech yet. So,
Right.
of course, the pendulum's going to swing back. And man, believe me, I understand how incredibly powerful those devices are. And nor do I want to live without. I think they're a great tool,
Mhm.
but they've got to be treated like a tool and they need to be respected as such as well.
That's exactly it. You wouldn't go around juggling a chainsaw or a handsaw. It's literally the same thing. It seems less harmless, but it's just as harmless. Because just today, man, I was getting gas after I worked out. And yeah, I live in a nice environment, nice community. But let's say I didn't. This lady's getting gas and she's completely lost in her phone. And I could hear her gas pump go click, as in it's filled up. And she's just completely standing there, lost in her phone, door ajar. And I'm thinking, man, I could club her over the head, take her shit, take her car, kidnap her. And at some point we have to realize that this device is actually very habit forming, and it
Mhm.
is so habit forming that it sucks us in from our reality and creates a new false reality. Now, back to what you said, I don't think it's going to erode humanity and this is not the end of us, but I will tell you this is responsible. Technology, convenience, comfort, all these things are responsible for eroding the middle class. It will become, in the very near future, in the next 10 years, we will see the upper class and lower class and virtually no middle class, simply because you were either awake enough to realize this was happening and you took steps to fortify yourself, your mind, your body, your finances, or you were like, oh shit, by the time I realized what was happening, I'm broke, I'm destitute, I'm living in some kind of hovel or government assisted living, and I just have to look to big daddy government for assistance, and that's how it's going to be. But I've chosen what path I'm going to go. I will be
Same.
the upper class. Yeah.
Right. And, not only that division, right? I started thinking about it when we saw the 1% and the 99%. We saw this really odd split. And what I figured would happen, right, is that split would go all the way down basically to every topic we'd need to figure out, are you one or the other?
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of those we're really going to see in the next 5 years is those of us who've chosen to be proactive in our health and take care of ourselves versus those who haven't. And
Yeah.
man, I'm not interested in giving that choice away. The
Exactly.
choice of what I can do, what I'm allowed to take, what I'm allowed to put my body through. And people that hand that over are going to sit there and be stuck. I'm terrified by seeing like Ozempic and shit like that hit the market. Because man, I think it's incredible that we've got some life-saving drugs, and I'm not anti-drug, but they're a tool.
Yeah.
But to lean on it and say, hey, instead of bothering to teach you how to eat right and fuel yourself and actually take care of yourself, let's get rid of the side effect, which is you getting fat and unhappy.
Yeah.
Like, man, those feelings are the discomfort that your body starts telling you that it's desperate for change. Why aren't we listening? Why are we so interested in distraction instead of self-improvement?
Yeah. Well, I mean, don't you think that part of it is, again, human nature always leaning towards convenience and ease? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, I could either watch YouTube videos, hire a coach, learn how to eat right, work out. When I work out, I'm going to sweat. It's going to be uncomfortable. The muscle burns. Or I can just take Ozempic and lose the weight and be dependent on this and pretend like I don't want to think about any potential side effects until they happen. And when they do, hopefully they'll have a drug for that. It's,
Yeast.
again, people always choosing easy over hard. And that old saying, I forget how it goes, but it says, if you choose easy, you're going to have a hard life. You choose hard, you're going to have an easy life. And it does make sense why society would choose the easier path of losing weight, but the better path requires effort, time commitment, all these things that they don't want to commit to.
So I know that you're also like a big morning routine guy. That's
Yeah.
been one of those things that's changed my life significantly and been something that I know that like is a systematic approach I have every day to starting things the way I want, to making sure that my time and energy go to me first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why do you think people have such a hard time with that? And why is that such an important time to take advantage of?
For me, I can tell you that I was forced to become better with my morning routine the busier I got as an entrepreneur. That's the reality. I wish I could say, like, man, I grew up like fully disciplined. I didn't. Discipline was not factory installed for me. I have always
Mhm.
been a hard worker, but I was that hard worker that was distracted, that could, I'll stay awake late at night and figure it out. Like I had the work ethic. And so
That's
I,
familiar.
yeah, right. I had the work ethic and discipline, so I didn't have to have the structure and routine. But when you get busy enough, as you know, you build businesses and companies and there's higher demand on your time and energy. I was forced to create a morning routine. And my morning routine isn't anything complex, man. It's not like interpretive dance and then journaling for 20 minutes and then yoga and then sound bowls, any of that stuff. I literally just make sure that I don't hit the snooze button when I wake up. For me, this alarm goes off at 6 or 5:30 in the morning, and I make sure that I turn the alarm off and I've turned off the snooze feature. And that simply because I've convinced myself, I don't know if this is true or not, but I've convinced myself that if I hit the snooze button first thing in the morning, I've stacked an L instead of a W.
Mhm.
So I've already got my first L for the day, which means the day is more likely to lose versus win. So once I've done that, then I remember reading Sean Stevenson's book, Eat Smarter. And in Eat Smarter, he said, your body dehydrates when you're sleeping all night. So
Right.
wake up and
Right.
drink 30 ounces of water. I'm like, cool. I trust this guy. He's a great scientist. And so I'm kind of a very simple person, man. I don't want to have an L, so I don't hit the snooze button. I just turn off the alarm. I get up, I drink 30 ounces of water because Sean Stevenson said so in his book, and I believe it does my body good. I wake up a little bit cranky most times. I think my factory default, Matt, is kind of angry and bitter. It's just how I am. I wake up angry and bitter. So I
Sure,
realized
sure.
if I send out 3 gratitude text messages to 3 random people in my life, it kind of forces me into a state of gratitude. That takes me 4 or 5 minutes to just pick 3 random people in my life who have been good to me and say, thank you for what you've done for me. Hope you're having a great day. Much love, B. Right. And it just forces me to have some level of gratitude. And then I found that there's music, like, you and we've been gym rats our whole life.
Mhm.
And so there's music that pumps you up and acts as pre-workout. And then there's music that'll put you to sleep and completely mess up your workout. And so I realized if I can use music as pre-workout, I can probably use music to change my state in the morning. So I found that the Jack Johnson's music puts me in a better headspace. So after I send out my 3 gratitude text messages, I turn on the Jack Johnson channel on Spotify, jump in the shower. So really, it's not an intricate morning routine, but it's a morning routine that's predictable, that's
Uh-huh.
consistent. And I think anytime, and not in fact, I know because I saw an interview, I think Joe Rogan did with the neuroscientist, and he said that anytime you do a pattern over and over again, they're able to see that in your brain because the neurons end up looking like a
Yep.
train track that's been developed versus just like neurons that are half developed. So I have done the same morning routine that is simple so many times that it's predictable, puts me in a good mood. I get out of the shower, go downstairs, coffee, protein shake, more water, open up my laptop and start working on my GSD list, the get shit done list that I made the night before, which is things that are going to move my business forward. I'll do that from like maybe 6 o'clock to about 8:30. By 9 a.m., I'm in the gym. And if I've done all that, by 10 o'clock, I'm done with my workout. I come here to HQ, take a shower, and I'm ready to lead my team. It's not rocket science, but it's predictable. And because it's predictable, I get to stack more W's. When I stack more W's, I start to gain momentum. When I gain momentum, I start falling in this inertia of winning instead of this inertia of losing. You know how it is. You go on vacation
Oh
for
yeah.
too long and you end up sleeping in a little bit, eating junk food. You come home and you want to sleep in and eat more junk food. You've fallen into that momentum of being a sloth. And so for me, I realize how influenceable I am. And if I have a morning routine that sets me up to win, that's very simple and predictable, I can execute on it.
One of the things I love most from that, and that I thought about putting my routine together was like, I knew that I had a systematic approach when I went to the gym to lift, that no matter what state that I showed up in the gym in, I could move the needle the direction I wanted it to go
Yes.
by my warm up. Why wouldn't I, if my life was important, do the same?
Bingo.
And so that's a part of figuring out your own, right? But we do know some things that are guaranteed to help. That big glass of water, go ahead and get some water in you. We know you're dehydrated. Dehydrated people perform worse.
Yep.
And then stillness, for getting some breath. And actually, and by stillness, I mean not waking up and starting to stare at your phone and start scrolling. How
Yeah.
dare you give any of that energy away, that battery that's 100% full, to something that's not aligned with what you're trying to get done?
Yeah.
That's got to be one of those conscious choices. The other thing you talked about was gratitude. When did that start becoming a practice?
When I became, again, this is funny. We're going right back to what we talked about in the beginning here, which is self-awareness. As I became more self-aware, I realized just again, we all have factory installed traits, right? And like factory installed, I lock on to things. I can lock on. It's no one had to teach me hard work, discipline, but I had to learn structure and routine. And I realized through a lot of self work, working with the therapist, reading books on self development, that I am not much of a grateful person. Like I'll just, again, waking up angry and bitter at life. And part of it might be being Armenian and coming from a depressed culture. I look at what's going wrong in the world and in my life instead of what's right. And so I was like, dude, I hear all these great people talking about gratitude, yet I don't think I'm a much of a grateful person. I just take everything for granted in terms of my health, my abilities, my family, my opportunities. So I said, what if I started to focus on that, just like I started to focus on my routine and structure? So it was a muscle that I had to train. But I'm always coachable too. That's always been factory installed for me. So it's like I'm a hard worker, I'm disciplined, I'm coachable. But I have bad structure, bad routine, and not a grateful person. So if I'm coachable, well, if I'm reading these books, hearing from my therapist that I seem to lean towards negativity and pessimism, what if I wake up and start showing gratitude first thing in the morning? Surely I can think of 3 people in my life that have helped me get here. I think Tony Robbins says that we're all standing on the shoulders of giants. I didn't create a massive empire on my own. As much as I want to say, the ego and pride wants to say I'm self-made.
Self-made. Right.
Yeah, I'm not self-made. None of us are, man.
No.
Even if no one helped you, there was probably people in your life that served as a cautionary tale of what not to do, who therefore ended up coaching you and showing you an example of what to do.
Well, look, I think we're all really comfortable with that idea, the butterfly effect, right? That like if you went back in time and changed this really small thing, everything's different.
Yeah.
And if we're all pretty okay with that idea, that means everything mattered to get us here. That also means that right now you're at that moment to make the small decision that changes 10 years from now.
Yeah.
And very few people get to see it that way and get to see, for me, the gratitude in the fact that I get to make a choice today. There's a lot of lives on this planet that have been spent where they don't get to.
Yeah. Well said.
Even from that point forward of in the last 160,000 years that Homo sapiens have been creeping around the planet, I get to go after stuff that I'm just interested in. You know how crazy that is?
What a great life, right?
What a gift. What a gift to get my ass kicked by the things that I love. And how necessary it is to continue to show up and get your ass kicked, and better by the things you love than getting so fucking weak that the rest of the world comes to get you.
Well said.
Because it's coming.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's coming. And then again, more self-awareness brings us to realize like, oh shit, like this is not a trial run of a life. This is my only life. Like I have one chance on this planet. And I think self-awareness is the most underrated form of self-development. Like people, gratitude and journal and all that, but like become self-aware. Like why do I react this way to things? Why do I respond this way to things? Why is it that my emotions make the conversation negative in my head instead of positive? Is it hereditary? Is it from trauma? And the more self-aware you become, I think the more you can develop a life well lived. And like you said, chase the things I'm interested in. And as you were saying that, getting my ass kicked by the things that I'm interested in, I'm like, man, the old me would be like, see, it sucks, man. I'm interested in building a fitness franchise and the world is not working in my favor and this sucks. I just want to help the world. That's the old me. The new me is, yeah, you're right. I think the universe is testing me to see if I really qualify to have this abundance that I'm actually trying to chase. And so I'm grateful to show the world that, yes, give me the adversity. I will pass the test, or I will die trying to pass the test, that I am capable of stewarding this giant fitness franchise. And just by reframing that in my head, I become a more grateful person than a hateful person, which is how I was.
Well, what I talk about with people I work with, right, is like creating that perception of abundance, because it's always there, especially in our current time. That at the end of the day, like, man, I haven't had to hunt food in a really long time. I've basically only ever been hungry in my life out of choice. Right. Because I needed to manipulate my body weight because I was too fucking fat. What great ability that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a struggle that we've got in this culture, right? Is I think that we're really, really bad as a people managing abundance. Yeah. We've proven that time and time again, that we will not edit or delete manage ourselves. Instead, we want some parent figure to fucking take the abundance from us so that we don't hurt ourselves. And I find that fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
Man,
why do Why do you think that is, man? I'm convinced that the reason we're always looking for the man on the white horse to gallop in to save the day, the parent figure, if you will, is because truly, like, we relied on our parents so much that even as adults, we forget to think that we are now an adult. We should be self-reliant, capable, and able to take action. Like, we should be the solution to our own problems. But I don't think people have gotten there yet.
Yeah, I think Western culture is really interesting. We haven't been around very long. And then two, we don't have any rites of passage. And that's not just for men. I mean, I love the people that want to help men. I want to see rad people, and I think rad people should have both masculine and feminine traits and be fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Right. But we don't have any rites of passage. We have this weird system that is go to school, which isn't about education, and get into a line of work, start buying a house, get into this, and don't have any time for a self-exploration or figure out who you are or time to test yourself. I mean, the last time most men in this country were part of something is like high school football.
Right.
They
And what
haven't.
percentage actually played high school football, right?
Right.
So,
Even then, you're talking 25% probably at best
yeah.
of young men.
Yeah.
Probably less than that. I bet that's a way big over exaggeration.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't think we have any of those trials. I also think we nerf our world so much as kids and don't let people risk getting hurt. And that we have helicopter parents and people freaking out all the time and telling us what's dangerous and safe, that we're not accountable. And part of that's we become so litigious that we allow it to be that way.
Yeah. Absolutely true. And there it goes again. We're almost like a virus to our own selves. Like, we look to bubble wrap our children so much. We don't want them to get hurt. We keep this training wheels on for a little too long. And metaphorically, that carries on into adulthood. Well, we don't want to offend anyone. So let's create 13 types of restrooms and this, that, and the other. And soon, like, dude, I remember what good comedy was. Today, God forbid you find good comedy anywhere, probably other than Dave Chappelle. He's one of the few uncancelables. But good comedy actually offended people, offended every nationality. It was a thing. Now it's like you can't even find good comedy anymore because people are afraid of getting sued and canceled.
Well, as growing up from another country, like a lot of what we think is how things are is very American. Yeah. And I've been lucky enough to get to travel a lot of different places. I know you have too. And these aren't the fucking problems other places.
No, they're not.
Right. And also, those people I see are healthier, choose better food, and are fucking happier.
Yep.
But our country chases this maximized profit and the idea that success only looks like more, more, more. You know how fucking crazy it is that we have storage units all over this country? Like, you have so much shit that it can't stay at your house anymore. You need to go put it across town and forget about it.
Dude, I trip out on that. And it's always the people I don't know if you've ever Googled the statistics, but it's always the people that are living below middle income that have all the doodads and gadgets that they need to park at a storage unit because it's like, actually sell that stuff and find a way to do something with that money that's going to enrich your life but again,
they're caught in that game, right? That I'm getting the next thing to impress this person who doesn't give a shit about me anyway.
Right.
And it's such a momentary thing. I talk about this idea of being a tourist people are tourists and not travelers.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of people in our culture that are trying to collect merit badges and shit to show off, saying, look at the experience I had with the selfie. Instead of people show up who have an experience and then integrate it into their life. Being able to actually learn the lesson. I mean, you know how many men I see go to retreats and then going to retreats becomes the new hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Not integrating a goddamn thing they learned from it. But going to get this new respark, this new drug, this new refill that they think is self-improvement, instead of ever taking the lessons and reapplying them to their life and getting rid of the bad habits that they learned.
Yeah. So funny you say that, right? Because when you really think about it, there's not a retreat that should take place that teaches you how to be what you want to be. You have something called a conscience. Mm-hmm. Your conscience literally is your North Star. It tells you how to be. And the way it reminds you you're not on path, on trajectory, congruency is through anxiety,
Right.
depression,
Right.
stress, overwhelm. It's just, again, there's no self-awareness, and therefore we just ignore it. And then we go, well, I feel anxious, depressed, overwhelmed. I better drink more. I better smoke more weed. I better entertain myself with pornography or whatever, video
Yeah.
games, when in reality we don't need more seminars, workshops, whatever. And I run those things. I wish someone
Same.
would put me out of business by waking up humanity and going, if you just listen to your conscience, what did your conscience say, what should you do? I bet if I put a gun to every lazy person's head and I'm like, all right, tomorrow morning, tell me exactly how your day should look, otherwise I'm going to pull the trigger. They go, well, I should wake up before the sun comes up. I should do this. I should eat clean. I should drink water. I should work out. I should. They're going to, Tony Robbins says it. He goes, they should all over themselves, right? Everyone knows the answer. It's just easy to ignore it and then to mask and escape from your conscience and the pain that it's giving you through the vices. That's all.
You said something earlier about like, I didn't, I had discipline pre-installed, but I didn't have these other things. And one of those you talked about was just like, being cranky and being in kind of a bitter shit mood.
Yeah.
I noticed myself, and one of those things with being around high performers is like, no one's fucking meaner to us than we are.
Right.
No chance. Right. And I'm also aware that I don't know how to rewrite that piece of code that's like pre-installed in my system. That one's there. I'm going to be fucking mean to me. And what I've decided with that is I know I'm going to take like 20 swings at myself today. And so I can choose to verbally sit there and have gratitude and say, thank you for showing up today. Thank you for getting up and doing the things that are important. Thank you for taking care of ourselves. Thank you, legs, for getting me around today. Thank you, heart, and thank you, lungs, and go through all this process and say it out loud so that voice inside my head that's beating me up is only about 10% of the voice around.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll fucking overpower it.
That is the key. It's funny. So I've got this event called the Project for men, and at the Project, one of the things I share with them is I said, fellas, every single one of us have the inner advocate and the inner critic, and both of those. I said, imagine if you are the driver of the vehicle, and the vehicle is your body. The two passengers in the vehicle must always be the advocate and the critic. You can't get rid of one or the other. What you can do is bound and gag one and put it in the trunk, and then move the other one, the favorable one, in the passenger seat. I said, most of you have the advocate bound and gagged and zip tied in the trunk, and you just hear a faint mumble of someone possibly saying, I believe in you, I think you're awesome, and I think you can accomplish and achieve, but you're not really sure because it's from the trunk and it's gagged. And then you hear the critic, your inner bitch voice, telling you that's right next to you that you're a loser, you're hopeless, there's no chance you're going to make it. And if we can, again, have enough self-control, enough self-mastery, enough self-awareness to just swap those two guys out. And one guy asked me one time during a project class, he goes, well, why can't I just completely kill the inner critic? I said, it doesn't work that way. You need this. If we didn't have darkness, we wouldn't enjoy daytime. If we didn't have summers, we wouldn't, or winters, we wouldn't enjoy the summers. You need the yin and the yang. That is just how the world works. It's the control over those two characters that make you a human being and not a human animal.
I mean, it's cyclical, right? Like everything's got a flow to it. I mean, our heartbeat's not a flat line. There's ups and downs.
Right.
Same thing with the rest of the rhythm of our lives, and seasons where it's work, and some are more harvest. But I know I don't ever get the harvest unless I show up for the work.
Exactly right.
And that work that I'm looking to harvest is going to be 5 years from now. And so how do I keep moving dirt? And how do I keep showing up and being consistent? And how do I find me worth the effort of showing up?
Yeah.
And so in rewiring that with men, what type of retreats and what type of practices are you put them through? I know you guys run kind of a SEAL fit. Is that not SEAL fit, but
yeah. Well, it's very similar to Mark Devine's. In fact, when I was starting the project, I reached out to Mark and I said, hey man, any chance you can kind of shed some light on what you do at SEAL Fit? And in fact, one of our instructors is a SEAL. The other one, who Nick Koumalastos, is a Marine. Two of them are Marines. And then there's me. And I just teach like life structure, business, entrepreneurship, because most of the guys coming through the project are about 2/3 of them are entrepreneurs. The other 1/3 are former military, police, firefighters, first responders who feel like they need to go through this experience and retest themselves.
Mm.
And yes, there's hardships like, carrying logs all night and hiking as a team and ice baths and truck pulls and getting yelled at and screamed at by the SEAL and the Marine. But then the thing that separates the project from everything else out there is the lessons that we have in between. And we don't show those in the sizzle reel on
Right.
Instagram and YouTube because it's not sexy, it's not fun.
Yeah, but that's where the
But
good shit is, man.
yeah, in the 75 hours, there's a good 15 hours of desk time where they're journaling in their battle books. And there's a 4-hour block called Toxic Cognitions. And Toxic Cognitions is where I take every one of these candidates at the project and I go, all right, guys, we're going to answer these questions. And toxic cognitions are basically false narratives that you believe
Mm.
based on traumas that have happened to you, right? And so it's like, well, I believe I'm unlovable. I believe I'm broken. I believe I'm unworthy because I was molested by 2 older boys when I was a boy, when I was a kid in Armenia. That's a true story. So that happened to me. And I walked 38 years on this planet feeling unlovable, unworthy, and really like I can be tossed away. Like if my wife finds out, if anyone finds out the secret about me, they're gonna get grossed out because of this. And so you carry this almost like this rucksack full of rocks your whole life that just stresses you out and weighs you down. And you try and not think about it, but you feel the weight of it. It pulls down on your shoulders and your neck's sore, and you're not able to compete with everyone else because you're always slower, you're always way down. Well, as it turns out, like 1 out of every 4 people have had some kind of sexual trauma. 1 out of every 3 people have had some kind of physical, mental, emotional trauma. All of us that have gone through that have had these limiting beliefs and false narratives, these toxic cognitions that haunt us and limit our human experience, our ability to show love or at least depth of love to our wives, to our kids, our ability to have prosperity and abundance, our ability to build relationships with other men. I was molested by 2 older boys. Do you know how hard it was, bro, for me to build a relationship with another man? Because I would come with skepticism, and immediately you were the enemy in the back of my mind subconsciously. So as we go through this 4-hour journaling experience, why I walk them through what happened to me, and then they write down what happened to them, and then I go, here's how it showed up in my life, and then they say, here's how it showed up, and then I go, here's what I did to heal through it, and then they go, oh, here's what I think I need to do. Okay. And then here's the superpowers that I've gained. I'm now more compassionate and empathetic towards men than ever before. And I believe what happened to me bestowed the superpower on me to be able to serve men in a way that most can't. And so I'm like, dude, my trauma was actually something that created a superpower in me. And I can serve you guys. And so imagine if you guys heal, go work with the therapist, like really do the deep work, you can heal through your shit, whatever it is. And when they first hear me talking about what happened to me as a young man, their jaws drop because they're like, holy shit, I never thought I would have to sit through something like this. And now I'm like, does anyone want to share what happened to them? And because I shared it
Yep.
and lowered the stigma, every hand goes up. And we spend the next 3 hours for the first time. These grown men are just crying and talking about what happened to them and how it shows up in their life and how it impacts their marriage and their work and their relationships. And bro, it is so healing. And that process would not ever take place if I didn't do the healing first. And so it's like we always teach what we need most, but we first have to heal and then come back and go, hey guys, look what I discovered. There's healing, and it actually makes you free, and life is so much better because of it.
I I love that, and it's really similar to part of the structure we have at the retreats I host. I host a hard reset. It's a men's retreat, and we dive first into that awareness where I share the big, gross, ugly stuff and lower that bar and let them see it.
Yeah.
That's why we're here, right? And then we hot and cold every day. We do some breath work. We do some Wim Hof. We go for a hike. We train, and by the end of it, my wife comes in to do holotropic breath work session. They're so unguarded for the first time.
Mm.
of being in that community of men in this closed container where they finally feel safe. They finally get to show up. They finally get to kind of see some purpose and have all the noise and distraction turned off for a little bit.
Yeah.
That breath work just shreds the room. It's
That's huge, man.
incredible to see, man. And those are all tools that help me get out of it. I really struggled when my career competing ended. I was competing in the Scottish Highland Games, won a few world championships, and finished my last season second in the world, needed to get an ACL done. And it didn't quite go as planned. I had 9 additional surgeries and then a total knee replacement at 36.
Damn.
Spent 3 years, going from being second in the world to like, I can't travel more than about 200, walk more than about 200 yards a day. And I travel with a cane. Nick knows. Nick went to Iceland with me while it was on its worst leg.
Right. But think about that though. Like you could have let that become your story and created a new identity because of it.
Right.
Or you did the more difficult thing, again, the hard thing that made your life better, which was the deep work.
Yeah. And look, the deep work took me having the awareness of understanding and being very honest with myself that if I don't solve this problem of chronic pain, I'll kill myself.
Yeah.
And I don't know when, but one day I'm going to lose that fight. And so if that's the risk of not solving the problem, everything's on the table to try.
Right.
Right. And so went fully into it, dumped all, any preconceived notions and started trying breath work, start trying cold, start trying anything that gets me off of opiates and making move toward that, and found so much more than I thought I was going to find. Leaned into changing my body and lost 100 pounds. And more importantly for me, like the big fear, right, was that the most exciting thing that I was going to do in my life was done. And I said, no way.
Yeah.
No way, man. Our lives are such an interesting story that we get a chance to write every day. And I'd be damned that the coolest thing that happened to my story is like in chapter 3.
Right.
In
Right.
my 30s. I'm not going to spend the next 60 years talking about something I did in my 30s. That looks like hell to me. I've seen plenty of old athletes and it grosses me out every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but what are you doing now? Like, what's the push forward? What are we chasing? Because that's that pursuit of happiness that I think is really important. Not life, liberty, and happiness, but the pursuit. What are you curious about? What are you chasing? And go ahead.
It's as you're saying this, it's stirring up so much because I realize most people think that in life they're going to have one purpose only, that they're going to have one mission. And if that one thing doesn't work out, it's kind of like, was it Al Bundy? Remember he was,
4 touchdowns for Polk High, man.
Yeah. Polk High, 4 touchdowns in one game. And that was it. I mean, you literally, you nailed it. And it becomes a sad, depressing story. And what we fail to realize is, like you said, this journey of, look, I may kill myself if I can't fix this thing that's causing so much pain. I don't know when, but it will end up leading to that. So everything is on the table in terms of solution. And as the universe works, you got more than you bargained for, because as you healed your pain, you also realize if I lose 100 pounds, I become a different person. You almost rebuilt a new identity. And we could do that so many times throughout our life. Like we could, they say from your 40s all the way to your 60s, you could either hit stagnation or you could hit what's known as generativity, which is, okay, now I'm in my late 40s, I'm 49. And as I go into my 60s and beyond, I've got great companies, I've made great money, I've raised a great family. Now I want to be able to, I don't want to hit stagnation where my kids leave. What do I do now? It's like, I want to pour into the generativity. I want to help the next generation. It is in a man's desire. But when people think like, man, this was it, the Highland Games was it, and I was supposed to ride this thing out forever and then become a coach in the Highland Games, and okay, well, that was the plan. The plan is like a loose framework, and all of life happens outside of that loose framework. And once people realize that, they can reinvent and reinvent and reinvent 100 times.
As long as you are not the things you've done, you are not where you've been. You are simply a combination of the actions you choose to take every day.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's it. You write that story however you want, build the avatar accordingly.
Yeah, exactly.
And man, that time with the Highland Games, right? Like, I've had things end before, right? Like college track and field and all this. And I really thought I had it licked, dude. I really thought that like when the career came to an end, I'd be fine. I'd just move on to the next thing. I wasn't prepared to not be athletic. I wasn't prepared that my body didn't work anymore. And what that really brought me back to was kind of another instigating event was 2014, my father passing away of pancreatic cancer. And at the end of it, he's not sick in here. The machine doesn't work. He's trapped. And I got a taste of it.
Mm.
And so, man, I'm aware that time's coming again. I don't know which one shows up first. The mind goes or the body goes, but one of them will.
Yep.
I don't know how long I have that it works. So from here on out, I'm damn sure honoring the fact that it does. And I'm going to fuel it properly, and I'm going to take care of it, and I'm going to treat it with love. Not show up to the gym and beat it with a hammer the way I did for 30 years.
Right.
That time's done. We learned a lot from it. But if we're going to travel around and get all these tools, I can't just reach for the hammer dealing with myself.
Yep.
I need the self-awareness. I need that piece that can thank that version of me for getting that strong and doing those things and continuing to show up in the gym and train through all those rehabs. I don't know why he did, but man, I'm fucking thankful for him.
Right.
Because he gave me the opportunity to create the rest of my life how I want to see it.
That's beautiful, man.
It's been a hell of a rip, dude. And I'm so excited now seeing people switch on. Seeing people, I realize everyone's resources and the environment they come from shapes so much of them. And if you're around people who've never done something impossible and you've never met someone like that, and you haven't been around someone who's successful, and you've never been in a community that genuinely treats each other with love and wants to see each other win, man, you can just think it's bullshit and it's not real. But when you find that community, and that's what really comes from doing the retreats.
That's exactly it. And sometimes you need a hard awakening, I guess, as you say, like a hard reset.
Yeah.
Right. And also, look, man, it's so sad, but 2020 really sped up the process of men falling into depressions and being lone wolves, because we live in a time now where men don't have community like they used to. There's just not. You
No.
go to any basketball court in any park and it's empty. There used to be a time where people were playing pickup basketball on a weekend or something. Now everything's empty. And so if you're a lone wolf and you're literally genetically coded to be tribal, to be part of a wolf pack, you are going to get depressed. You are going to get overwhelmed. You are going to start thinking suicidal. Like we're like chimpanzees. The moment we're ousted from the community, we begin to erode. Sadly, no one's ousting anyone. We almost choose to oust ourselves because we stop getting engaged into things. And so events like yours and mine and others force men to come together, find like-minded dudes, and form that brotherhood that we deeply need.
Yeah. And whether or not they can choose to follow up and continue leaning in is always interesting, right? They're like, hey, man, we just gave you the tools. Are you going to show up Monday morning and take care of it when you're back by yourself?
Right. Exactly.
Getting
right.
them to actually implement that change and become that ripple that shows their family, and what actually creates a leader isn't the talk and isn't this tough guy shit that we try to sell it as. It's people who show up.
Yeah, that's it. Show up, have core values, and belong to a tribe. Like have a tribe of like-minded people, man, because at the end of the day, like there's no one thing that I can do on my own, but with a tribe of like-minded people, I could conquer the world.
Right. And I think it's really obvious and we miss it, right? Look at how much in, say, the first 20 years of our life, we're shaped by the environment and people that we didn't choose, and how much that impacts our life, including mostly all of it for everyone.
Yeah.
So what if from this point forward, I'm completely intentional with the people I surround myself, and I'm completely intentional with the environment that I'm going to be in? Like, wouldn't that change me in the way I want it to go? Massive change. Why do you think men struggle to make new friends in their 30s?
Well, I think, again, part of this thing is like, okay, well, I'm going to get married and my wife's going to be my friend. And yes,
Not a peer, though.
You can call her your best friend, but at the end of the day, men understand other men. Like when you were a kid and you were on the playground playing with other boys, it was fun because they understood the way of men. Jack Donovan in his book, The Way of Men, talks about how men need these four things: strength, honor, courage and mastery of things. And mastery could be shooting a basketball. As you get older, it could be whatever, MMA fighting, weightlifting, whatever the thing is, and strength, courage, and honor, like to belong to a tribe. And so it's like, well, I'm going to get married. Life started. I've got a career. And again, it goes into isolation. Well, where are your male friends that you could lean on, still do fun stuff with? You're not just some human robot that's supposed to go out there and earn and then come home and then feed the baby and the wife and then go, well, I'm doing my job as a man. I got a roof over their head and I'm providing food. Your job as a man is also maybe have a little fun, be able to connect, test yourself against another man in terms of strength or courage or mastery, chess, fucking this, have a conversation that's
Yeah.
meaningful more than just, hey, how's the weather there? Dude, I've got a weather app that can tell me the humidity in exactly by the minute in your town. I don't need to have that kind of small talk, right?
Also, I have skin. I know the fucking weather.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think men get married and then they find the careers and they fall into this inertia of, well, this is a new life. And it doesn't have to be that way. Like it's what we did on the playground needs to carry on. Just like you said, now intentionally find like-minded dudes, maybe who are married, who share your passion for fitness or art or chess or whatever the thing is, and then intentionally meet with them frequently enough. The fact that we have to structure these things for men to do blows my mind, but
Yep.
that's apparently where we've gotten to in life.
Well, I mean, how many men never intentionally choose their friends, right? Like all the friends I made were from the college I went to, which probably has something to do with where I was born.
Yeah.
Then the people that I'm now friends with are the people that go to the job that I'm at, which is what I ended up applying to after I got out of college. Not what I really wanted, but I need a job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like everything's pre-installed from the jump. You didn't pick shit.
Yeah.
I ask that to people all the time with religion. Like, did you pick this? Or is that what you have because of where you were born? Because if you were born 200 years ago, would you have chose the same?
Mm.
Or are you so educated on Hinduism and Muslim and everything else that you know this is the best fit? Because I want to know that you chose it, not that it was handed to you.
Yeah. Napoleon Hill in his book Outwitting the Devil really exemplifies what you just said here. Men, like, and this isn't just for men. I think most people in life, he says they drift through life like a rudderless ship
Yeah.
and just kind of glomming onto whatever. Well, I got out of college. I've got college debt to pay, so I got this job. It wasn't the job that's aligned with. In fact, that's why I think there's an 82% of people that have a college degree are working in an industry that is not what their college degree is about because they just got out, they needed a job, they interviewed and took one, and that's where they've drifted to. And then they
Because our
drift into
education system is like, hey, you're going to be a loser if you don't go to fucking college.
right.
I know college expensive. We'll lend you money for that. And what they're really banking on, right, is like some people are going to become creative problem solvers, no doubt. But most people are going to enter the fucking workforce because you owe us money.
Yep.
And right when you kind of get a feeling again and you start feeling like, I deserve, let's lend you money for a house. Now you can't ever back out.
Yep.
Can't ever make a change. You feel trapped in it. And most men will die in that mediocrity.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really what it is. It's a sea of mediocrity that most men are swimming in. And again, it's going back to the word you said, intentional. If you can intentionally say, I'm going to go to college, but before I do, here's what that education, the vocation is going to lead to. Like, I had that conversation with my son and daughter. And so my daughter is like, yes, I am going to go to college because this is what I want to do. My son's like, dude, dad, you're right. I want to do music, write music, sing music. And I could do that here on my own. He's 18 and he's got 3 songs published to SoundCloud already. And he's like, I don't need college. Right. But if we just said, hey, go to college because that's the thing to do. Okay. Now you acquire debt. All for what? Now you have to go get that job, and the drifting begins, and then the shackles of money and debt, and then you meet someone at your work. Unfortunate.
Yeah. And very few people, like when things went shit for me and I had to lose the weight and I ended up with a divorce and everything, right? One of those things that came from that is I know I'm willing to hit the detonate button if I'm not fucking happy. It's a
Yeah.
lot of freedom and power in that idea.
Mm-hmm.
I know I won't ride it out. I'll make change.
Yeah.
And most people are terrified of it.
Yeah. Which is funny because change.
It's happening. You can't slow it down anyway.
Or do you want to be the I guess the on the receiving end of whatever circumstances create change?
That's exactly it, right? And our perspective of how to see that moment, whether that my father dying becomes the gift that unlocked my ability to see the passion I've got for the rest of my life, or it becomes the moment that I can't ever live past.
Yep.
Doesn't change him dying.
Correct.
It's my perspective that creates that reality. Brother, what do you guys have coming up? Where can people find more information?
And as we've created these experiential events for everybody, for men and women, we've got this thing called the Masogi. It's a 12-hour challenge that again puts you through hardship. And Masogi is a Japanese term for
Mhm.
kind of renewing yourself at the end of the year with the intentions of launching yourself into a better new year. So that's the Masogi challenge. Then we've got the Squire program, which is a father and son 12-hour rite of passage experience for boys who are 13 to 16 years old. And that's the Squire program. And then, of course, the big granddaddy program that I'm known for men is called the Project. It's a 75-hour straight experience. We control their sleep, their food, their everything, their experience. And the men that graduate and don't quit and ring the bell, that graduate, come out the other side just hockey sticking in life and belong to a brotherhood that focuses on what we call the 4 F bombs, which is faith, family, fitness, and finance. And that leads to a life of fulfillment. And so those are the meaningful things I do, and all the content that I put out I speak to men because I do believe that when the world goes to shit, as much as we talk about equality and unity and we're all the same and we could be a transgender unicorn, at the end of the day, you are going to look for a tough, burly man that's willing to use his strength and courage to stand between you and evil to save the day. And so I believe it is my job, my calling, my destiny to help awaken men.
I love it. I love it. I want to say thank you so much for
Appreciate it,
time
brother.
and everything, brother.